Karen thought she could park her SUV in my yard to teach me a lesson until a blacked-out federal convoy pulled up, scanned her plates, and declared her car evidence in an ongoing federal investigation. Turns out, my house is the last place. You want to mess around because it's an active evidence storage facility under national protection. It started with the kind of arrogance only an HOA Karen could carry, the kind of self-assured entitlement that dripped off every word she said as she strutted up my gravel driveway and French wedges and a clipboard in hand like she was commanding. A military operation, not standing on someone else's property. And all because my house didn't fit her vision of what the neighborhood should be even though. Ironically, I wasn't part of her HOA, never signed up for it, and in fact, owned the entire 5-acre stretch that her precious subdivision wrapped around like a tick, trying to suck legitimacy off my deed. I was polite the first time. I really was. I told her calmly that her HOA had no jurisdiction here, that this land had been in my family for 4 generations, and that the house, despite its plain look, had special status, something I didn't. Feel the need to explain to a woman who demanded I paint my mailbox beige and prune non-existent hedges? But Karen didn't listen. She came back again and again, each time more aggressive than the last, culminating in the final straw, her smug face appearing on my doorbell cam as she screamed about community standards before parking her luxury SUV on my front lawn and snapping pictures. Like she was collecting evidence for a case that didn't exist, her tires digging ruts into the grass right above what she didn't know was a reinforced concrete vault built by the Department of Justice decades ago, because unlike any other home on the block, mine had been quietly converted into a federal evidence storage site after my grandfather, a retired federal marshal, agreed to let the feds house long-term cold case archives, confidential documents, and even locked containers with sealed criminal exhibits from high-profile cases. There was a reason our basement door required a biometric scan and had 6 cameras pointed at it 24/7. But I never bragged, never showed off, just lived my quiet life maintaining the property and reporting into the DOJ's field office once a month to confirm security logs and integrity inspections. Until Karen crossed the line when I saw her vehicle rolling over my lawn, right next to the no trespassing signs and the buried surveillance markers. I didn't just call local law enforcement, I hit the button that transmitted a silent alert to the federal task force responsible for site oversight. And within 5 minutes, literally 5 a black Suburban with blacked-out windows rolled into my driveway, followed by 2 more, and Karen, who had been mid-selfie while standing next to her illegally parked car, froze as a group of armed agents in plainclothes with visible sidearms and encrypted comms stepped out and fanned around her like a tactical formation. Not one of them saying a word until their team lead, a gruff woman named Agent Reeve who'd been running point on the site for over a decade, walked up and asked, calmly but firmly, "Is that your vehicle on the federal storage perimeter, ma'am?" And Karen blinked at her like someone had asked her to solve quantum physics on the spot, before stammering about community enforcement and HOA violations. Until the words federal evidence facility made her knees wobble and her voice go from bossy to breathless. And even though I tried to hide the smirk on my face, it was hard when Agent Reeve ordered a mobile tow team to impound the vehicle under Federal Statute 18 U.S. Code, Section 641, unauthorized interference with government property, and had Karen placed in a seated position on the curb while they ran her name, plates, and reviewed the footage from my integrated camera system, which, oh, by the way, had been installed and funded by Homeland Security after an attempted break-in 15 years ago. Nearly compromised a witness protection archive in the basement. Safe, and yes, Karen had managed to plant her overpriced SUV almost directly above that sealed evidence container, which meant her little HOA stunt had triggered a Tier 3 perimeter breach under DOJ protocol. Something so serious that within the hour, a forensic vehicle unit arrived to photograph, document, and scan her car for electronic devices, ensuring she hadn't inadvertently captured sensitive signatures, or breached digital proximity, though we all knew she was just another nosy neighbor drunk on fake authority. It didn't matter to the feds, because the rules were rules, and this was a federal site. Even if it looked like a quiet country home, and, as the hours passed, and Karen's smugness melted into frantic pleading. As she tried to explain that she didn't know and thought the HOA had control, I stood back and watched justice unfold the way it always should when bullies mess with things they don't understand, because Karen hadn't just parked on my lawn. She'd parked on a federally protected, legally insulated, security prioritized Zone 1 that required bi-weekly DHS oversight and had been hidden in plain sight for generations. And when the sun started to set and her SUV was hauled away on a flatbed under a federal impound order, I finally walked over, leaned down, and said softly, "Next time, maybe read the signs," before walking back inside as she was told she'd be contacted by a federal investigator for questioning about her intent and knowledge of the site. And though I knew they wouldn't press full charges, the blacklisting along getting flagged on every federal access list and banned from government properties nationwide would be punishment enough. And the cherry on top was the letter I sent her HOA president the next day, complete with documentation proving her actions triggered a federal investigation, and a request to cease all contact with me or my property under threat of legal retaliation for interference with protected infrastructure, which caused the board to panic, call an emergency meeting, and vote to remove Karen from any leadership role indefinitely, ending her short-lived HOA reign with the same speed she once used to bark orders. And, while I didn't celebrate publicly, I did sit on my porch with an iced tea that night, watching as a for sale sign was quietly placed in Karen's yard 3 days later. Her empire of paper power finally collapsed by one mistake: parking on the wrong lawn.